welcome back to Passions Podcast. I am your regular host, LeTara, and I am your only host this week. Unfortunately, I had some scheduling issues, and since I missed last week, I didn't want to miss 2 weeks in a row, so I'm powering through by myself, alone. We'll see how this goes. Let's just vibe. Let's see see what happens. So today, before we get started, I want to go ahead and say a shout out to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you to Munashe, Marcus, Erica, Breland, Lisa, Sid, Randall, Ashley, Hannah, Camelia, Samantha, Jeanette, Eric, Jamie, Fantasia, Sean, S, Larissa, Maria, George Lopez Fitzgerald, Lisa, and Jessica. Thank you all so much for being patrons. You really honestly keep this show going, and you're like the main reason I'm doing it, honestly. So thank you so much. You honestly, you are my passion for life. Like, I love this show, and I love talking about passions, but it is a lot of work. So it's nice that other people appreciate it. So thank you so much. So if anybody else out there wants to become a patron, it's easy. You can just go over to patreon.com/passionspodcast and sign up for whatever tier looks best to you. Also, if you don't want to commit to a monthly contribution, but you want to help, there's also a tip jar. The link is in the description. It is also linked in our link tree on all of our social medias. So you can always drop me a dime or two. I won't turn it away. Thank you very much. So with that, I think it's time to get into this show. This week, oh my gosh, I'm so sad for the fact that I have to talk to myself about this week, because there was a lot, and it's a great week because we're in the lead up to 500. So it's 491 through 495 are the episodes that I watched, and they were so fun. And now I'm going to tell you about them. So let's start this week with magic, because there's not a whole lot to do here, honestly, but definitely a couple of fun moments. So first of all, we got to talk about Tabitha. Tabitha and Timmy are stuck in Hecuba's lair, which, again, let me remind you, happens to be beneath the Crane Mansion, where everybody is for Luis and Sheridan's engagement party. And you might have forgotten that this is Luis and engagement. You may have forgotten that this is Sheridan and Luis's engagement party, because we haven't really seen them very much the last couple of weeks, but this week we get a lot of them. So if you're a Luis fan, you're in for a treat. Okay, so magic. Tabitha and Timmy are in the lair beneath the Crane Mansion. Tabitha's just watching everybody's misfortune and talking about it on her pool of water. There's a well, and she can see everything, and she keeps sprinkling in magic dust into the well, and it changes the channel every time she sprinkles in some magic dust. It's like she changes the channel, which was great. But yeah, she and Timmy are just watching and commentating. So let's talk about what Tabitha is seeing in her magical water. Charity, remember, the kids are all in this ridiculous maze, this ridiculous love maze, looking for the love square. And Charity finds Kay and Miguel on a bench making out heavy, hard. And a reminder that there's also the bit about the mist. Well, they're calling it the fog now. Last week it was the mist. This week it's the fog. So they're calling the fog. Everybody's in the fog. Charity, through the fog, can see Miguel and Kay making out on this bench. And then she sees Miguel tell Kay that he loves her. And then Kay's like, of course you love me. I know you like Charity, but she's just a girl and I'm a woman. And she says, if you just make love to me one time, Miguel, you'll forget all about Charity. Okay, all right. And honestly, this seemed very real. Like, Tabitha makes a couple of comments during the show, or during this week, about us not knowing what's real and what's a vision or is a hallucination. And so this really seemed very real up until a point, and we will get there in a moment. So Charity confronts them. She walks up on them. She's sobbing. And she says, "How could you do this to me, Miguel? You told me you loved me. You said that we were going to get married." And he says, "I can't explain it. I've always known I've had feelings for Kay, and I just didn't realize how strong they were until just now." And then Kay like walks over, puts her hand on Miguel's shoulder, and is like, "Sorry, cousin, but your boyfriend's mine now." That, you know what? There were so many great quotable moments this week. This was one of them. Moments that could be the episode title, and this was one of them. "Sorry, cousin, but your boyfriend's mine now." That's not the episode title because one stood out above the rest, and we will get to that. So then Miguel chimes in and he says, basically, he says, "You wouldn't have sex with me, but Kay will." And Kay says, "You better believe I will." Oh my God. Another quote from Kay. She says, "Charity, you have to face reality. Being Miss Goody Two Shoes will get you nowhere. It's all about sex. Sex. Sex." I'm not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. She said sex probably 12 times. I'm telling you, she just kept saying sex, sex, sex. And it was at this point that I was like, oh, this is definitely like either a vision, a hallucination, or a premonition. No, not a premonition because this is just ridiculous, outlandish. But yeah, she basically, Kay is telling Charity that Miguel is leaving her for her because she will give it up to him and Charity won't. So then Charity is just like sobbing, this poor girl sobbing, going on and on saying, "You said you loved me. You said you wanted to marry me when we turned 18. She accuses them. Sorry. "You said you wanted to marry me when we turned 18. He says, to her, "I'm sorry, Charity. I would take it all back if I could, but I can't stay away from Kay. I need her. I need her." And then Kay says, "This isn't one of your silly premonitions. Miguel is mine. Miguel is mine." And we get that over and over again, just like the sex, sex, sex. Now we're just getting "Miguel is mine. Miguel is mine." And then they just disappear. And so obviously at this point, you know for sure that that was just a vision that Charity was seeing and it was not actually Kay and Miguel. But immediately Kay and Miguel like reappear coming from different directions. Kay like pushes through some bushes, like the hedges that the maze is made of, and Miguel like comes around the corner. So they're coming from different directions. They definitely were not together. But Charity, she saw what she saw and she knows what she knows. And she goes off. She's talking, telling them they were kissing. "I saw you. You told her that you loved her. You told me that you didn't want to be with me anymore." And of course, Kay is like pleased as punch because she thinks that Charity is having like a premonition and that all of this is going to come true. But Miguel and Kay both tell her like, "No, that didn't happen." Uh, Miguel says to her, they always tell this girl, Miguel says to her, "Oh, you must have seen the fog is so thick and you must have seen this statue." It's like a statue of two people in an embrace. "And you must have mistaken the statue for me and Kay." And then she says, "No, it wasn't a statue. I saw you. I heard you talking." And he says, "Oh, you're just tired." They always tell this girl she's tired. Every single time. No matter, she's having a psychotic break. Like, even if you don't even though we know that it's like the fog that's doing this to her, anybody else in this episode should be thinking, "Oh my gosh, this girl's having a psychotic break. She's not just tired." And this keeps happening. And Miguel keeps saying, "Oh, you're probably just tired." She's not just tired, honey. She's losing her mind. Help her. Help her. Why won't anybody help this girl? I don't know. But she really needs some help. But no, they're gonna just they according to Miguel, she really just needs a nap. For her side, that'll that'll solve all her psychological woes. A nap. If only. If only napping solved mental illness. If only a nap could get rid of this depression. Nah, whatever. Anyway, so Miguel tries to assure her that he absolutely does not love Kay, is not interested in Kay, only loves her. And he says, I love you and only you. I will love you every day for the rest of our lives. And this seems to calm Charity down. I think she realizes that there's no way she saw what she thought she saw, but she's still very unsettled. And that's really all we have with them. Kay is like pleased as punch. She thinks like this is what's going to come true for her. She thinks that Charity has basically predicted the future. But Miguel's like, there's no universe where I don't love you every day for the rest of my life. So that's all there is with them. So just to finish up here, Timmy, we got to go back to Timmy and Tabitha. Timmy and Tabitha are stuck down in Tabitha's lair. And Timmy decides he's going to make martinis with whatever the fuck is down here. He's like, he calls them potluck martinis. And he just starts opening up potion bottles and pouring them into martini glasses, which I guess Hecuba had martini glasses, but no stuff for martinis. Well, then again, maybe some of this stuff was martini stuff, because he just pours the shit in there. But then Tabitha says, oh my gosh, Timmy, did you use that particular potion in that vial for these martinis? They didn't drink them or anything, but he's like, yeah, I did. And she says to him, that liquid is one of the most volatile liquids in the entire universe. And then it starts to smoke, like the martinis start to smoke. And then Timmy and Tabitha are just like spun around, very cartoon-like. We get like the Batman like and like the spinning screen and it comes out. And then the next thing we see is Timmy falling from the sky on top of Julian, who has just had a conversation with Rebecca, who walked away from him, who has just had a conversation with Rebecca where Rebecca tells him that even if he believes that there's a doll, a living doll that Tabitha walks around with, perception is everything. So nobody wants to do business with a person who thinks that dolls come to life. So she tells him, cool it with the living doll talk, so that people will perceive you as a sane person, basically. But Timmy falls on top of Julian. And, of course, Rebecca's not there to see this, just Julian. And he gets up, Timmy gets up, dusts himself off. And Julian's like, it's you, the little man who, Tabitha's doll, basically. And then Timmy just thanks Julian. He says, thank you for inviting Timmy to the party. It was a truly unforgettable night. Oh, it's so cute. And that's like where we end it with the magic portion of the night. Now, there's plenty to be said about Julian in other portions of the week. So now I'm going to move on to our fated couples, Ethan and Teresa, as well as Chad and Whitney. There wasn't much here either this week. And what we did have, it was basically the same stuff we had last week. It was mostly just recap about of the same things we had last week. Like, not even recap, replay. It was like the same scenes. So we pick up where Teresa has run into the reporter in the maze and Ethan has run into Gwen in the maze. Remember, Gwen came into the maze with the reporter, but they immediately got separated. Immediately. Like, whatever, it doesn't matter. They immediately got separated and Gwen bumped into Ethan and the reporter bumped into Teresa. So we pick up where the reporter is talking to Teresa and Ethan can hear the reporter's voice, recognizes the reporter's voice, and then he says, that's that reporter that broke the story about me not being a crane. But who's he talking to? Who's that other person? He recognizes the voice of this reporter that he's met 2-3 times, But he doesn't recognize Teresa's voice? What is wrong with these men on this show? I'm sorry, y'all. I know some of y'all really love Ethan. I cannot stand him. And then I was watching it. My niece was watching it with me. She was like, "Well, maybe it's the fog." And I was like, he's in a constant fog. He walks around with a fog around his head. He is the fog. A thick, thick, thick layer of fog. I can't stand this man. But yes, I digress. He recognizes the reporter's voice, but doesn't recognize his own fiance's voice. Which, you know what? Maybe that's a sign that y'all shouldn't be getting married. Just in my opinion, my humble opinion. But anyway, not Teresa, who's with him? Gwen. Ugh. So he doesn't recognize the voice, and he says, that must be his accomplice, the person who helped him, the person who sent the email. He's like jumped to this insane conclusion that the reporter's there talking to his like informant, I guess. And so he actually just breaks all the rules of the maze and just goes directly through the bushes. And he finds the reporter there. Teresa randomly hides, which I didn't understand this. I didn't understand any of it, honestly, because it seemed so benign, with the exception of like the fact that the reporter is there and he is the person who broke the story in the first place. How would you leap to the conclusion that Teresa is the person who like informed on you about that? Whatever. Anyway, he goes through the bushes. He sees the reporter. Teresa hides, even though she has absolutely no reason to hide, none whatsoever. Ethan yanks this reporter up with his violent self. He just constantly is resorting to violence. He's like holding him up. He's like, "Who are you talking to? Who were you talking to? Who sent the email?" And he's like, basically threatens to kill him. And when that happens, Teresa runs out and is like, no, Ethan, please don't do it. Don't kill him. Basically, I don't want you to go to jail, right? And then Ethan's like, Teresa, what are you doing here? What are you doing with this low life, right? Well, it's a maze. How did you end up with Gwen? That really irked me. Because then Ethan and Gwen then like turn on Teresa together. And Gwen says, isn't it obvious? She's his accomplice. She's the one that sent the email. Can't you tell? Why else would she be talking to him? Except you entered this maze with the reporter at the same time. Now, I get Gwen kind of glossing over that and not saying that. I understand her reasoning. I understand that she's being deceptive. I get that. However, the fact that Ethan bumped into Gwen in the first place should make it seem plausible to him that Teresa just bumped into this reporter. Neither of them were supposed to be there. But yet, Ethan is like going off. What were you doing? Talking to him? How do you know him? Teresa is defending herself. She's like, no, you got it all wrong. I was trying to get information out of him. I don't know him at all. I just recognized him as the reporter. And so I also want to know who did this to you because I love you, blah, blah, blah. Gwen is like in the background going, don't listen to her. She's his accomplice. She definitely sent the email. She's really going off. But again, the show doesn't say this, but I think we are meant to attribute all of this kind of madness to the fog, to the magic fog. And so then Gwen steps to Teresa point blank and says, would you ever lie to Ethan, Teresa? And Teresa's like, no. And then Gwen says, well, tell the truth. Did you know that Ethan was a Bennett before the tabloids reported it? And Teresa hesitates, which if it were me, it's a perfect out. Thank you, Gwen. Thank you for the out. I've been trying to bring this up, and I just haven't had the chance to. Well, I had plenty of chances, but I haven't had the guts to do it. And I would have taken the out. It would have sucked, but I would have taken the out in that moment. Teresa did not take the out, and Of course she didn't, because she's an 18-year-old girl who is not thinking for. Although, if I'm really being honest about it, well, okay, I'm going back and forth. I'm waffling here. I got two. I'm of two minds on this. The first one is that if Gwen is attacking Teresa, saying you are the accomplice, you sent the email, you knew that Ethan was a Bennett before the tabloids, in my mind, this bitch knows something. I don't know exactly what it is, but she knows something. I might as well come. Let me come clean right now. I can clean this up. I can handle this. However, I am of the other mind. My other opinion is Teresa truly believes that Gwen doesn't know anything. She has nothing, and she doesn't know that Gwen sent that email in the first place from her computer, right? So she doesn't know how much trouble she actually is in. So I do understand, because I also am the deny girl. Everybody knows this. I take it to the grave. Take it to the grave that there are some things you will never get me to admit to. There's some things I will never admit to doing. And this could be one of those things. Like, this is on the level of one of those things that I would like, nope, I knew nothing. I know nothing. So again, I'm of two minds on this. It would be easier for Teresa, knowing what I know, if she just copped to it now. But if I'm in her shoes, realistically, and I'm 18, and I don't think that there's a chance that anybody will ever find out that I knew, yeah, no, take it to the grave. So she does that. So she does that. She says no. And she says it she stands 10 toes down, says it with her entire chest. No, Gwen, I didn't know. And then Ethan like kind of softens. I don't know if the fog just dissipates. Like, how does the fog madness end? I don't, like, for everybody's episode, because everybody in these episodes had like a fog, like, psychotic moment. And the way it ends, except with the exception of for TC, the way it ends seems very like, oh, it just dissipates. So I guess the fog just is done fucking with you and moves on. I guess. Anyway, so I guess the fog is lifted from Ethan, and he apologizes to Teresa. He says he doesn't know what came over him. He doesn't know why he became so aggressive in that moment about. He's like, of course you don't know anything about this fucking scumball, and he apologizes, and Gwen is not too happy about that, because she really thought that this was her moment. She thought it was finally her moment, but she is still standing firm on, you know what, I'm still gonna take care of you on your wedding day. So we all know that's coming. So yes, Ethan feels very bad, especially Teresa's very shaken too. She's like shivering, which we all know this girl knows how to quiver with the best of them. She's the best little quivering lip. I can't do it. I can't do it. But yeah, she's visibly shaken. He comforts her. Gwen's not so happy about it. Whatever. But he believes her and says he doesn't know what came over him. So we're going to move on to Chad and Whitney. Oh my God. So again, there's not much of this, but we pick up where Chad is making out with Simone because he thinks in the fog. It's very clear that the fog has made him believe that he's kissing Whitney. And he's kissing her. He pulls away and he tells her how much he loves her. And he really thinks it's Whitney, but it's Simone. And Simone is like thrilled, overjoyed, over the moon. I honestly felt so bad for Simone. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, I know we've been saying that I stopped saying she was delusional because they have been playing boyfriend and girlfriend for like 25 episodes at this point. But I just felt so bad for Simone, poor baby. Like, he was kissing her really passionately. He told her how much he loved her. And it wasn't like when he was in his, like, when he was bleeding out in Whitney's bed and he just wasn't in his right mind at all, and it was like obvious that he wasn't all the way there. He seemed to be in full use of his faculties. There was just like there's no explanation for it beyond the fog, which nobody's gonna buy. Oh gosh, I feel so bad for Whitney. I mean, well, Whitney too. I feel bad for everybody in this situation. I feel the worst for Simone though. So while that's happening between Chad and Simone, Whitney is having a hallucination where she walks into Chad's bedroom and Chad is sitting on his bed. He turns around and he says, "What are you doing here, Whitney? We agreed that we would never be together. We agreed that we can't be together." And he says, "We just need to move on with our lives." Whitney starts going, "What are you talking about?" She doesn't understand. She's like, "We just started going out and things are great between us, with the exception of the fact that my sister thinks that you're her boyfriend." Which she doesn't say that. I'm saying that, like, because Whitney's talking about how great their relationship is right now. And like, girl, what about the fact that your sister thinks that he is also her boyfriend? That's not great. And y'all have not gotten that settled. Anyway, she's really upset. She's saying, "We just figured this out. You and I are together. Things are going really well. My parents approve. We don't have anything standing between us. There's no reason for us to not be together." And he just keeps saying, "Whitney, you have to leave. We agreed that we could never be together. It could never work." And then he stands up and he hands her an envelope. Do y'all say envelope or envelope? Pause for answers. Because sometimes I say envelope and sometimes I say envelope, and I don't know why I make the change. But anyway, he hands her an envelope, and she looks at it and she goes, "Oh my God, you're right. We can't be together." And she's devastated. So my assumption is, and Timmy like talks about this again, Timmy and Tabitha are just giving us commentary, the director's cut, the director's commentary, the DVD commentary, for all of the scenes. And one of their Timmy's particular commentary for this scene was, what was in the envelope? Was it the fact that they're brother and sister? Is that what she saw? Every time Timmy asks a clarifying question of Tabitha, she just goes, maybe, maybe not. That's a terrible Tabitha. God, I do a terrible Tabitha. Maybe. Wait. I can do this. Wait. Tabitha. Maybe, maybe not. Nope, none of it's good. It's all very, very bad. She says maybe, maybe not, basically, in this very like elusive, aloof voice. And he asks a lot of good clarifying questions that she just will not answer. So we don't really get any clarification on this, but it seems as if she got the information that Chad is her brother, maybe, or something that really makes her go, "Oh my God, no, we could never be together." So then Whitney starts to walk away. She's like leaving and she's really, really upset. And she's like believing this. She thinks that this is happening, like legit. And as she's leaving, she starts to doubt. She's like, "Wait a minute. What is going on here? Nothing seems right here. Is this even Chad's room?" And then she turns around and Chad has disappeared. And then she runs out of the room and she runs directly into Chad making out with Simone. Then once he sees Whitney, he snaps out of it and he's looking at Simone. He goes, "Simone?" Can you imagine making out with your biggest crush? Like, think of your biggest crush that you had in like middle school, high school. Yeah, let's say high school. And they're like telling you they love you, they're kissing you, and then they pull away and they get this look of horror on their face and go and say your name, LeTara? Devastation, but not for my baby Simone, honey. She said, no. He told me he loved me. It doesn't matter. That what just happened doesn't matter. So, It's just a blip. That's just a little blip. I mean, I don't know what could have gone through her head, but she is thrilled. She says to Whitney, once she sees Whitney, she's like, "Isn't it great, Whitney? Now Chad and I can tell the world how much we love each other, and our parents are, on board." And Chad is speechless. Whitney is stunned. Simone says to Chad, "I need to find Kay." What? What? What, girl? Huh? Excuse me? It doesn't make any sense except for the fact that they needed Simone out of the way so that Whitney and Chad could have this conversation, because it does not make any logical sense. She would be glued to that man. She would not have a thought about Kay. Well, maybe she would. She does have like a little Stockholm syndrome when it comes to Kay, I feel like. So, maybe it tracks, I guess. I just think it's nonsensical. Like, you just had the most incredible moment with this guy that you've been longing for basically years at this point, and you want to go find Kay in a maze when you're gonna see her like as soon as y'all get out of here, you're gonna see her again, and you can tell her about it. But whatever. Then once she's out of the way, Chad and Whitney are free to talk, and Whitney is pissed. Chad tries to explain that the fog was so thick, and he thought that Simone was Whitney, and he really sincerely he saw Whitney there. And Whitney says, "Whatever, Chad. I can't be with you. It's over. It's over, Chad." And Chad is he's like, "No, we need to straighten things out right now. We can," because he thinks that the reason that Whitney wants to break up with him, which is partially true, is because he was kissing Simone. But I also believe that part of it is whatever she saw in that envelope really spooked her. And because she's saying to him, you and I were having a conversation, don't you remember? We were in your room, we were having a conversation, and you gave me the envelope, and we were talking about something, but she won't say what the something is. So to me, that means it's something so unthinkable that like she won't even speak it, right? She won't even say it. And that has to be what it is. It has to be that they're related in some, like, she found out that they're related, or specifically brother and sister. So but Chad thinks it's just the Simone stuff, which is huge. Don't get me wrong, that's massive. Yeah, I also would be like, we can't be together at this point. It's just too much. We can't be together, and you need to break up with Simone, but you and I also can't be together, because my sister is in love with you, and you have let her believe that you are in love with her too. And I know Whitney was part of this, but it's just gone on way too long at this point. So it just would be weird. Like, I would just be very uncomfortable. First of all, knowing that my boyfriend had like made out with my sister, but also the fact that my sister is like obsessed with him and loves him, in love with him, it's just not worth it. No man is worth breaking up your relationship with your brother, your sister, your family. So Chad wants to straighten things out with Simone, but Whitney is like, absolutely not. What she says is, "I just have a feeling that something is really, really wrong, and I cannot be with you." And then she just runs off. And that's where we leave it with them this week. That's it for our fated couples. So with that, it's time to move on. I don't know which one to do first. I think we do. Let's do Shawise first. It's their party. It's my party, and I'll cry if I want to. Cry if I want to. Cry if I want to. You would cry too if your daddy did this to you. Oh my gosh. The things that Alistair is willing to do, the lengths he will go to destroy his own children, specifically Sheridan. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. He's an absolute monster. Horrible, horrible. So let's talk it out, shall we? And by we, I mean let me talk to myself and to you about this. So, Sheridan and Luis. We pick up at Sheridan and Luis's suspicious ass engagement party that, let me remind everybody, they got engaged this morning. They got engaged this morning, and now they're having an engagement party in the nighttime. So just like the timeline of it is insanity. So Rebecca and Julian, of course, are continuing their scheme to break up Sheridan and Louise. Julian has arranged to have Louise called away to the station. There's a crooked cop at the station who's on the take from the Cranes, and he's called Louise away for some bullshit assignment at the station. It's like he has to do a report for the mayor or some bullshit. It was absurd. So Luis has been called away, so he has to leave. But as Luis is about to leave, Sheridan is walking him to the front door of the mansion, walking him out, right? And they're standing there like talking about how much they love each other. And he's like, I'll be right back. And I love you. And Sheridan then hears Dee Dee's voice, the sexy, sexy decoy's voice on the other side of the door. Because Julian, Rebecca, the sexy decoy Dee Dee, and our imposter are standing right outside. And they're having like a little chit chat. Sheridan overhears the voice. She says, wait, shut up. That's the voice. That's the voice from the phone call. She goes out the door, and it's only Rebecca and Julian standing there. Dee Dee and the imposter have made their way away. Dee Dee and the imposter have made their way to a second location, I guess. And Sheridan comes out. She says, I heard a voice out here, a woman's voice out here. Rebecca's like, oh, yeah, it was me. And Sheridan's like, no, this was a different voice. But, of course, they gaslight her like they always do. And then Luis leaves. And when he leaves, Sheridan is like worried about the fog. She's like, the fog's so thick. I hope he makes it to the police station. So Julian prompts her to call the police station. He says, it should have been long enough by now. He should have made it. Maybe you should call the police department and check to make sure that he made it. So she calls the police department, where the crooked cop, Packer, of course, his name would be Packer. That reminds me of Todd Packer from The Office. If you know, you know. But anyway, Officer Packer picks up. Sheridan asks, is Luis Lopez Fitzgerald there? He sees Luis outside. Luis has just arrived. He sees Luis getting out of his car, but he tells Sheridan, no, he's not here, because he has been paid to say no, right? So Sheridan is like very worried and goes out to find Luis. Except, why wouldn't she call him on his cell phone? You used to call me on my cell phone late night when I need your love. Used to call me on my cell phone. Why wouldn't she just call him on his cell phone and check to make sure that he made it to the station? But I guess the power of suggestion from Julian overtook her reason. So she called the police station. But since Luis wasn't at the police station, she decides to go look for him herself, because she's worried that something happened to him. Again, she could have just called his cell phone to check on him, but that wouldn't work with the plan. So Julian has arranged for the imposter and Dee Dee to go to Dee Dee's house. Like, I guess Dee Dee has a home in Harmony that's right on, they said the name of the road. It was like Old Coast Road. And Julian has arranged for the imposter to have the exact same make and model color car that Luis has. And so he's like, make sure you park it right on the street so Sheridan can see it. So he parks it on the street under a street light. Sheridan, of course, sees it, pulls in, goes up to the house, is like, what the hell is going on here? Whose car? Is this Luis's car? She goes, I don't know his license plate number, but it looks exactly like his. Then she notices a tuxedo jacket on the seat, which was also another detail that Julian thought of to make her for sure believe that this was Luis's car. And she's like, well, this has to be Luis's car. So she goes up to the house and she hears like she hears noise from inside the house. She hears like music and laughing. And she's like, I wonder if Luis is in trouble. Okay, girl. So she then like goes inside. She breaks and enters. She goes inside this woman's house where Dee Dee has like strewn her clothes about. The imposter and Dee Dee are just waiting in the bedroom for Sheridan. They're just sitting there waiting. And then they hear her in the hallway and she's like, okay, it's showtime. And then they start to like pretend to make love and she's going, oh, Luis, Luis. She's saying his name a lot. Sheridan looks in. Oh my God, this was so dumb. This is so stupid because I love Sheridan. Like, they've done so much work on Sheridan that I wish they would have had her truly confront this situation the way that she should have, because it was her Jean-Luc experience all over again, and it's like she's not learned a damn thing basically, and hasn't grown at all, because she does basically the exact same thing she did when she found out that Jean-Luc was cheating on her, which, for those of you who may not remember, Sheridan had a whole ass fiance at the beginning of this show named Jean-Luc when she was living in Paris, who was like using her and was cheating on her with Mimi, the lovely Mimi, who both of which got blown to smithereens. R.I.P. Well, R.I.P. to Mimi. Jean-Luc, rest in hell, asshole. Anyway, so rest in pieces, motherfucker. Anyway, Sheridan walks in. She sees the scene, but she stays like in the shadows. They can't. Well, what's her name can see her, but she doesn't want to be seen. Sheridan thinks that they can't see her and doesn't. They don't know that she's there. She's like, "Oh my God, Luis! How could he do this to me? Luis would never do this to me." And then she runs out. She starts to leave, and then a glimpse of hope for Sheridan. A glimpse of hope for my girl. She turns back. She says, why am I leaving? Like, I've done something wrong. Why am I running out like a sad, pathetic schoolgirl? So she marches back down the hallway. Oh, but this is, oh my gosh, I almost forgot the most important part. See, this is why it's so hard to do this by myself. I almost forgot the most important part. She pretends like she's leaving, right? Or doesn't pretend. She's leaving. She goes out. She's having her moment. So then Dee Dee is like, okay, get off of me. It's over. We did what we need to do. And then the imposter peels off the mask, throws it into the hallway. Throws it into the hallway. And then he like comes on to Dee Dee, who's like super not into it. And then she's like, I saw what you could do. It wasn't that good. And he was like, well, I was acting like I was Luis, but the real me is much better. And so he basically seduces her and she like gives in. It was very uncomfortable for me, honestly. It just, because she had said no and she's clearly showed that she was not interested. And I could tell that she just seemed to be very pressured into having sex with this man. It was weird. There was a lot of like weird moments like that this week where it wouldn't fly on TV today, number one, but also it should never have flown on TV. Like, even back then, this would have been a weird. I feel like it would have given a lot of people like weird vibes in the ick. Because it wasn't sweet in any way. It wasn't like cutesy. It was just kind of gross. But he seduces her basically, and I guess she's super into it. I don't know. It seemed like she felt coerced, but that's just what I think. So they're back on the bed. The mask is in the hallway. Sheridan has this like moment of courage, and she's like, why am I leaving? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not a pathetic schoolgirl. She marches back down the hallway, damn near steps on that fucking giant mask. She's standing toe down on this mask. Like, her feet are at the mask. Doesn't see it. She does not see the mask. She just stands there, and then she starts crying again. And then she says, no, I can't let them see me like this. And she runs out. Never saw the mask. Moment of silence. Never saw the mask. Nonsense. That irritated me. Because why even throw the mask out there? I guess to make us think that she's gonna realize what's going on. Why, but like, if you're not gonna do it, and we know you're not gonna do it, and you know you're not gonna do it, why try? Like, why even? It's just so frustrating to me. Is that not frustrating to anybody else? Am I just uptight when it comes to these types of nonsense shenanigans in this show? Because that was ridiculous. She was damn near standing on top of the mask and did not see it. So what's the point? What was the point of him throwing it out of the room? Why wouldn't he have just been a little more cautious with the mask? That would make sense. But that's not what they did. Whatever, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on because I have to. Moving on. So, Sheridan runs out. She goes back to the mansion. Well, she goes back to her cottage. She drives back to the Crane estate. Let's say that. She goes back to the Crane estate. Meanwhile, the real Luis is down at the police station doing this phony report for the mayor, talking to this crooked ass, dirty ass motherfucking cop who Luis clearly trusts and cares about. They have like this conversation about Luis tells him basically all the struggles he's had with finding Sheridan and getting together with her, and how her family has been trying to tear them apart. And he goes, but it's not going to work. And I thought this party was going to be some kind of setup, but turns out it was all on the level. Was it? Because now you're at the fucking police station doing a phony report. But okay. Which is so suspicious. But again, I digress. Going on. At one point, the police, like, this crooked cop is trying to keep Luis here and stall him for as long as he can. So at one point, he like spills coffee on the report. So Luis has to like print it all out again, I guess. And then he's just terrible at stalling, because he tries to get Luis to stay by just going, no, you can't leave. Luis is like, the fuck? No, you can't leave. Why not? And then the cop is like, well, the mayor's going to read this report, and he's probably going to have some questions, so you should stick around. And Luis goes, he can call me on my cell phone. He can call me on my cell phone, just like Sheridan could have called him on his cell phone. But again, moving on. This terrible, terrible cop is trying to stall Luis, and Luis like gets hip. He's like, wait a minute, Packer. Yo, I can't even do it. Wait a minute. He's like, wait, let me get my notes. So Luis starts to get a little suspicious, or so it seems. He says, wait a minute, Packer. I'm a trained cop, just like you. I got the whole picture. I know all the tricks, and I got the whole picture. Let's not play games. And like, it's serious. You think that he really is like onto this man. And Packer goes for his gun. Ain't that just like a cop? He immediately goes for his gun. He like pulls his gun out of the holster. Which, why didn't Luis notice this man pulling his gun out of his holster? You're a trained cop. That's what you just said. I'm a trained cop, just like you, and I know what's going on here. You know what this man said? He said, I saw you having a hushed conversation over there, because Julian had called and told Packer, hey, you need to keep Luis there a little bit longer. Like, we need you to stall him, basically. And so he was like, Luis says, I saw you having a hushed conversation over there. And he's like, it's your wife, isn't it? I think her name was Melanie or something. I think it was the same lady from the party. But he's like, your wife is bothering you about working the late shift again, isn't she? And these women, they just need to understand the life that they've married into. We're cops, and we have to do our duty. Boy, if you don't get the fuck out of here and go find Sheridan, I can't. Oh my God. The way he really looked extremely suspicious of him. and then said all of those things that would lead you to believe that he has really sussed out what is going on, or at least sussed out something nefarious. And he has not sussed out a goddamn thing. The Harmony PD is terrible. They're all so bad at their jobs. And now we know they have crooked cops on the take from the Cranes. For sure. That's now canon in the show. So anyway, Luis leaves. And but there's been enough time for Sheridan to like see the whole thing and be duped and be in shambles. So she heads back to the estate, and so does Luis. Luis is going back to his party. He's like, "All right, I'm going back to my party where the love of my life is." He gets back to the party. The party's over. The party is over. Nobody's there. He finds Pilar in the entryway. And she explains that everybody left because they were worried about the fog and wanted to leave before it got any thicker. And he's like, "Oh, well, that's too bad. I really wanted to make a speech, make a toast to my lovely bride-to-be. Where is she, by the way?" And Pilar's like, "I don't know. I haven't seen her." Because she's been dealing with Ivy. Well, actually, we haven't seen much of Pilar, and then finally we got like 2 scenes with Pilar, and this is one of the scenes we saw with Pilar. But she's like, "I haven't seen her," and he's like, "Okay, well, I'll find her." He goes off searching for her. He goes over to the cottage. Over at the cottage, Julian and Rebecca have like intercepted Sheridan as she comes back in like hysterics about what she's just witnessed. Rightfully so. Like what she saw and heard, like horrible. I felt really terrible for Sheridan. I do wish she had like confronted the situation head on. I don't know that it would have made any difference because there was a Luis imposter there. Though when she came back the second time, she absolutely would have seen what was actually going on. She would have seen the mask. She should have seen the mask. She should have seen the mask. But she didn't. But anyway, Sheridan didn't see any of that, and now Julian and Rebecca have intercepted her. She tells them she just wants to be alone. They, of course, do not take that. They're like, "No, you must tell us what's going on." And she finally says and tells them what happened. So Julian and Rebecca are pretending to care about Sheridan and not know what's going on. Sheridan relays their plan back to them point by point and says all of the things that had happened over the night, how Luis had gotten that strange phone call, how she saw him arguing with that woman out in the garden, how she saw his car, she saw the jacket in the car, and then she eventually saw him making love to another woman, and how she was saying his name and all of this. And she says, "I'm nothing but a pathetic, gullible fool." And then, of course, Julian is like comforting her, which just rings so false. He has never, not one time when Sheridan has been upset, has he tried to comfort her. Not a single time. When she came back after the whole Jean-Luc situation, he basically was just like, "Yeah, you pick the worst men and you're terrible. And of course this happened to you." He has never had any sympathy for her in that regard. So again, doesn't ring true. Sheridan, wake up, girl. Wake up. But again, I guess she does believe, she's decided to lean into this insane belief that Julian and Alistair have like turned over a new leaf and that they're trying to be more kind and gentle and loving towards her. So okay, you know what? I guess I'm gonna give it to them this time. Them this time. So that's when Luis enters. Luis enters confused because he is immediately met with ire, honey. He is immediately met with like voracious anger and rage. Sheridan says, get out. I never want to see you again. Like, she doesn't give him a moment to speak. She's like, "How dare you show your face around here? How dare you try to play me for a fool? I never want to see you again. Get out." Luis refuses to leave. He's like, no, you are the love of my life. And he's just deeply confused. Bless his little heart. He's just so confused. I feel so bad for Luis in this. I feel really bad for Luis. I feel really bad for Sheridan. Both of them are having really horrible experiences right now because Sheridan truly and honestly and rightfully so believes that Luis, the love of her life, has cheated on her the same day that he proposed to her and during their engagement party. Left her at their engagement party to go fuck another woman. That's rough. But on the other spectrum, Luis left a happy fiance, a woman that he finally is opening his heart to, loves with all his heart, comes back and she's telling him she never wants to see him again, and he ain't done nothing but go write a stupid fucking report for the mayor. So he's just lost, bless his little heart. She wants him to leave. He refuses. Julian tries to butt in, but Luis shuts him down like multiple times. Good for him. And he says, I'm not leaving until I know what's going on. And so Sheridan finally, and I love this because the first time around with this imposter bullshit, Sheridan would not say what happened. She would not tell this man. And we did that for months of this back and forth where she thought one thing had happened. He had no clue that it had happened, and she would not tell him what the thing was. But so I'm so glad that we did not do that this time. She finally came out and said, okay, I'll tell you what happened. And she explains, I caught you. I saw you making love to another woman during our engagement party. And he's like, the fuck you did? He's shocked by this news. He's like, what? And they kind of argue back and forth, argue. We do the back and forth of, I saw you. No, you didn't. I don't know what's going on, but that's not the truth. Yes, I did. How dare you? You're just trying to play me. And it's my fault. Basically, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, is what Sheridan is saying. She wants him to leave. He refuses to leave. They like argue in the kitchen, and I want to make this quick little aside. They like argue in the kitchen. Rebecca and Julian are in the living room, and then Julian gets a phone call from Alistair, who immediately says, hello, son. This is how you know he's just a battered, abused child. Alistair says, hello, son, and Julian looks at Rebecca, smiles from ear to ear, and says, he called me son. Ugh. I know it was supposed to be camp and funny. It broke my heart. Like, it was supposed to be a funny moment, but it is so indicative and so telling of what their relationship is and has always been. And I know how horrible Julian is. I know it. God, I can't help but feel for him. He was so glad that his dad called him son. Because if you really think about every time they have a conversation, he might call him Julian, but most of the time he's calling him moron, idiot, fool, like a alcoholic. Like, he's calling him all of these really mean, nasty things, and he's never called him. I'm sure he's called him son before, sparingly, but Julian has heard it so little in his life that was a happy moment for him. And I feel for him. I feel for you. I think I love you. Except I don't love you, Julian. You're mean and you need to do better. But I do feel for you. Anyway, so they're Sheridan and Louise are fighting in the kitchen, back and forth. Then they go out to the living room, continue fighting. Julian and Rebecca kind of try to insert themselves multiple times. Louise makes several good points to Sheridan, where he says, especially with Julian and Rebecca kind of being in her ear, he says, what a turn of events. What a new leaf Julian has turned over, that he's like caring about you. He has never cared about you before, but now all of a sudden he cares so much about what's going on with you. And then he looks at Rebecca and is like, and I haven't forgotten the way that you tried to get me to ruin things between my sister and Ethan. I remember all of the things that you have done in your devious ways. Like, y'all are not good people. And why should anybody believe that you care about this situation? I certainly don't. It's basically, I'm paraphrasing. And he's trying to get Sheridan to see reason. And I understand why Sheridan doesn't see it, because she saw with her own eyes. She saw Luis. She heard that woman call his name. She had all of these different things throughout the night. And she says this to him that built up to that moment. And she's like, I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I can't argue with it. I cannot argue with it. It's frustrating, but I can't argue with it. Then Luis appeals to her and says, can we just talk alone? I just want us to be able to, we need to sort this out alone, just the two of us. So Sheridan agrees, sends Julian and Rebecca out. Luis talks to her about their love and all the things that have happened between them. He talks about how they both died on separate occasions and came back from the dead to be with one another. Like, and that legit happened. Sheridan remembers like going to heaven, being with her mom, coming back to be with Luis. Like, she was dead. And then Luis talks about how when he died in the archives, the Crane archives, when he got electrocuted and died and became a ghost. But he came back to life because of the love that he had for Sheridan and that Sheridan had for him. Their love brought them both back from the dead. So they're zombies too. We got 3 zombies on this show so far. Miguel, Luis, and Sheridan are all zombies. I didn't even think about that. They've all been dead. Huh. Anyway, so Luis then she still is not going for it. Like, she's starting to soften. I think she sees it. She's hearing it. You see it in her reactions. But her brain, her mind is like, nah, no. You're not going to get my heart, because my brain knows what it saw. My eyes saw what they saw. And so then they just kind of continue going back and forth. Luis says, we have to fight for our love. Our love is all we have. And she doesn't go for that either. And then he says, and this is where the turn kind of happens. He says, well, Sheridan, because he also had been kind of at a high level through all of this, because he's just so worked up, like, what is going on? He's confused. He is just very emotional about it. And then he kind of starts to settle in, and he brings it down, brings his level down. And he says, well, Sheridan, how do you feel? And she says, I feel stupid. I feel foolish. I feel betrayed. And he says, it's kind of beyond belief that I would do this to you, right? Especially on the night of our engagement party. Only a cold-blooded bastard would do something like that, right? And she's like, yeah, only a cold-blooded bastard would do something like this. And he says, is that what you think I am? In all the time that we spent together, do you think that you really could have been so stupid and naive that you didn't notice that I was really a cold-hearted bastard this entire time? He says, like, what about all the times that I risked my own life to save yours? Or how I decorated the garden to match what your dream proposal was? Or how I gave you my grandmother's ring, knowing how important tradition and family are to me? This is a good speech. They've given Luis a few good speeches, and this was a good speech. It really worked for me. I think if I had been in Sheridan's shoes, this might work for me. I might be like, okay, I'm willing to hear more of what you have to say. But what Sheridan says is, All that proves is you're a damn good actor, Luis. Whew, okay. I mean, I get it. I do get that. And then Luis says, no, you have doubts. I can see it in your eyes. And you can't throw away what we have, even if you have the slightest doubt. He says, we need to get to the truth about this, and we need to do it tonight. If we don't, then we'll never get married and both of our lives will be ruined. And I think I neglected to say that Luis flat out accuses Julian, Rebecca, and Alistair of setting him up. He says this was a setup. Can't you see it? He says to Sheridan. She doesn't go for it. Because she feels like he's grasping at straws. But it is kind of obviously a setup. You know, it is kind of obviously a setup. They wanted to have an engagement party out of the clear blue sky for you same day that you get engaged, right? They didn't give you any time. The same day you get engaged. And then all of these things start happening. You've never noticed anything suspicious in the way of another woman ever before, but all of a sudden on the night of your engagement party, Luis decides that he's gonna be like with another woman, and you just and y'all have been together 24/7 for like a year at this point. When would he have found I don't know, whatever. Whatever. Sheridan seems to be coming around, so we shall see. Moving on, it's time to finish this thing out with our troubled, oh my God, these troubled marriages. Oh, so much trouble. All right, so let's keep on keeping on, keep moving on. We're moving into these troubled marriages. This was kind of a mess because the troubled marriages, they start to overlap. The stories that are happening start to kind of overlap. It was very interesting, fun, a lot of, I mean, drama, but like fun to watch. So we'll start with Grace, Ivy, and Sam. Okay, so we start this week with trouble marriages, where Grace walks in on this scene between Sam and Ivy. It looks like Sam and Ivy are about to kiss. And right as they're about to kiss, because remember, I just want to remind everybody, Ivy like threw herself out the window last week. She like stepped out onto the ledge and jumped, and Sam grabbed her and saved her and pulled her back in. And he says to her at one point last week, he said, like, I thought I was going to lose you. And she says, you'll never lose me, Sam. And the fog is starting to come in through the window. So we're getting a little bit of, is it Sam's love or is it the fog? You know, the Tabitha saying maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Okay. So Grace is watching this scene between them. He's so close to her face. They're so close to kissing. And then he pulls away. And then Ivy like tries to suck him back in, saying, you need to remember our love and the passion that binds us. And then we get like a montage of all of these past moments from their relationship from when they were younger. And they were all very sweet. One was them in bed having like champagne and her saying that he'll never lose her and she's his forever. And then one was when he gave her that locket that has that ugly picture of him in it. And at the time, of course, it didn't have the picture of Ethan in it, but that's the locket that she always keeps on her. So we just got a bunch of different moments, vignettes that we had not seen. And then the fog gets thicker in the room and it transforms Ivy into a vision of her former self. So we see the fog lift and then it comes back down and we see like young Ivy in like one of her outfits from the memories. And then Sam walks over to her and tells her, I love you. I'll always love you, Ivy. Again, is it the fog? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's partially the fog. Maybe he feels this way, but he never would have said it. But the fog is making him say it. That's what I believe. I think he really does love Ivy. I think he also really loves Grace. I want to be clear. I think that you can love two people. And I think that you just choose monogamy with one person, but he can absolutely be in love with both of these women. So anyway, he goes over to her and says, "I love you. I'll always love you, Ivy." Ooh wee, ooh girl. And then they kiss. Oh my God. Then they start kissing, and they like kissing big. And Grace exclaims, she from the cause she's in the shadows, right? She's standing there watching this whole thing. She goes, "No, Sam." And then she just runs off. And Sam notices that it was her, obviously. And he starts to run after her and to get her. And then Ivy tries to stop him, like pulls him back and says, "No, Sam, it's all right." What? No, it's not all. It's not all right. And that actually, that's exactly what Sam says to her. "No, it's not all right." And he runs off after his wife. And so now we need to talk about Eve and TC. This is where things start to get a little messy because these people start running into each other. So let's first talk about Eve. Eve is having a hallucination where she's back in the hospital where she gave birth 20 years ago to Julian's son, her and Julian's son. And a nurse comes up to her and says, "Oh, Mrs. I can't remember. I can't remember what her maiden name was. Miss whatever her name is. What are you doing out of bed? I know what you're doing out of bed. You wanted to see your son, isn't that right? You want to see your baby." And then Eve says, "See my baby, but my baby died." And the nurse says, "Your baby didn't die. Your baby's in the nursery. I'll go get him for you." She brings out the baby, gives it to Eve. Eve is overjoyed, and this actress gives a beautiful performance. Actually, multiple people did this week. They did a lot of really great acting this week. But oh boy, was I just like so happy for Eve in this moment that she got to hold her baby, even though I knew it wasn't real, but she felt like she was experiencing it. And so then the nurse comes back, tells her, "I'm going to take the baby, change his diaper, but then I'll bring him back to your room. But you need to go back to bed." Because at this point she's in the hallway with the baby. "But you need to go back to bed." And so Eve is starting to walk off. And then she's like, "Wait a minute. This happened to me before. And they took my baby and my baby died. I never held my baby again. I never saw my baby, basically." So the nurse takes the baby, and then Eve starts to think, well, maybe I've been granted like some weird second chance, and maybe I can save my baby because my baby died and I need to save my baby. So she goes running to the nursery. She's worried. She's like, "I need to save my baby. I need to save my baby. They can't kill him this, like, I not kill him. Like, I can't let my baby die this time." So she's running around this hospital looking for her baby. She finally gets to the nursery, sees her baby laying in a crib in the nursery, and she's outside, like in the window, the gallery where you can view the babies. And then she sees this like dark cloaked figure walk in, and she goes, "Who is that? Julian, is that you?" And then the man, it looked like a man, picked up the baby, and she said, "That's my baby. He's taking my baby." And the man leaves with her baby, and she goes berserk. She's like, they stole my baby. He stole my baby. My baby's gone. My baby's gone. But no, really, she's going berserk, and this was rough to watch, honestly. Ugh, I felt so bad for Eve. So now she's thinking, my baby didn't die, my baby was kidnapped. So she at this point is like, in real life, is lying on the ground, like outside of the mansion. I don't know, because it doesn't say that she like bumped her head or anything. She's just lying there. And this is when Grace runs into her, having ran out of seeing Sam and Ivy kissing. And Grace is like, "Oh my God, Eve, are you okay?" She pulls her up, and Eve is coming out of her fog. She's coming out of the fog, and she's going, "My baby's alive. My baby was kidnapped. My baby didn't die. My baby was kidnapped." Grace is like, "Oh my goodness, that's crazy." And then she just makes the whole situation about herself. No, actually, before she makes the whole situation about herself, she says, Oh, get this. Get this explanation. Grace says, "Oh, the fog's so thick, you must have seen this statue." And it's a statue of like a mother and her baby. "You must have seen this statue, bumped your head or something, and just got confused." And then that's how she explains it away, explains Eve's hallucinations away. And then she then proceeds to make this whole situation about herself, which really pissed me off because, like, I get that you just saw your husband kissing Ivy, but let's be real, I don't know what you thought was going to happen. I don't know what she thought was going to happen. And that's all I have to say about that, really. Actually, that's not true. I have tons more to say about it. But so you sent him over here in the first place. He keeps telling you he doesn't want to be with her. She keeps telling you she's going to take your man. Everybody else is telling you she going to take your man. Now, I'm not saying you can take a man, but a man like Sam, a simpleton, he can be stolen. He's simple. So, so she is making this situation about her. Even, and I think what bothered me about this was that Eve is saying something really traumatic. She's sharing something really traumatic with Grace. And Grace, honestly, Grace's problem kind of pales in comparison when you think about it, right? Like, Eve thinks she just had like this almost spiritual experience where she realized that her son is still alive and was kidnapped. And even if that's not true, the fact, the subject matter that we're talking about trumps you and your husband's like marital woes. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was just a little bit annoyed that she came across her best friend who has like passed out, who then wakes up telling this insane story, and then she wants to have a conversation about Sam kissing Ivy. I guess she wanted to share what was going on with her, but she really brushed Eve off, and it did not sit right with me. But they have a conversation where Eve tries to convince Grace. She's like, "Grace, Sam's never, like, you're never gonna lose Sam." And that's when Grace is like, "Well, actually, I just caught him kissing Ivy." And Grace basically is like, "Yeah, well, what'd you think was gonna happen, babe?" No, not really. She blames Ivy, honestly. She's like, "I'm sure Ivy tricked him somehow. I'm sure there's a explanation for it." So then she also starts like blaming herself, which I know I just said, I know what I just said. I know that I just kind of sort of blamed Grace myself. But it don't sit right with me the way this was written. Because, and we will get to it, but there is a point where Sam and Grace have a conversation where Sam never apologizes to her for kissing Ivy. But Grace constantly is apologizing for the fact that she sent him to the Cream Mansion in the first place. But he should be able to control himself. Like, let's be all the way for real. So anyway, in this conversation with Eve, she starts blaming herself. She's like, I never should have sent him here without me. I sent him right into Ivy's arms. And then she goes on about how the lies in their marriage, that the lies have ruined their marriage. And she says, "Eve, you got to tell TC the truth about your past, so before your secrets come out, because lies ruined my marriage, they'll ruin yours too," basically. And then Sam happens upon them, and he's panicked. And let me tell you why Sam is panicked. He comes upon them, and the last time we saw Sam, right, he was chasing Grace. But as he was chasing Grace, he came upon TC, who is having a psychotic fucking break. I mean, the worst one we've seen from anybody on this show. He's having a psychotic episode. So let's talk about it. TC has fallen and bumped his head. And when he woke up, he saw a vision of his father, his dead father, his ghostly father. And his dad tells him, Julian Crane must die, and you must be the one who kills him. And then TC kind of is like, okay, Pop, I, I'll kill Julian, basically. His dad tells him, what Julian has done to you is worse than murder. So basically saying you can kill Julian because what he's done to you was worse than murder. And then TC gets like transported back to his high school car. He's in his car. He's like, oh man, this is my car. The car I had in high school. I used to love this car, blah, blah, blah. He's like driving the car. You hear his like dad's voiceover. He's like, remember this night? You were so happy. And TC's like, yeah, I was so happy because I was coming home to tell you that the tournament was basically won. All I had to do was beat Julian and I would win the whole tournament, whatever this tournament was. And I knew I could beat Julian. And then his dad is like, yes, and you were bound for Wimbledon and you were going to have this incredible career and everybody knew it and you had the world, basically the world was your oyster. All you needed to do was get past this one tournament, which, okay. So then TC is like driving this car and then he has to relive the car crash that ended his career. So his dad says in a matter of seconds, it was all over. And then the car crashes. And TC starts like hyperventilating. He's like, oh my God, I remember this ruined my career. My leg has never been the same. And then you, Pop, you died from a broken heart. And TC talks about I never found out who was driving that other car, but I know who I think it is, basically. And then his father's like, do you want to see who it is? So he takes him over and shows him Julian in the other car, in the driver's seat of the other car. And then TC just starts choking the life out of Julian, this dream Julian, choking the absolute fucking dog shit out of him. And this is when Sam finds TC. And he tries to get TC to snap out of. He's like, TC, what's going on? Because all Sam can see is that TC has his hands around the neck of a statue and is choking it furiously, okay? And so that already looks insane. Well, once Sam gets TC to see that he's, kind of snap out of the hallucination and he realizes that he's choking a statue, TC is not done. TC's like, where's Julian? I gotta find Julian. I'm gonna kill him. Julian, you're a dead man. You're a dead man, Julian. He's in an absolute rage looking for Julian. So he goes back to the mansion. He goes back to Julian's, storms down the hallway to Julian's office, goes in. Julian's not there. He knocks over all Julian's booze, kicks over the crystal. He like throws some shit across the room, leaves, marches on looking for Julian. Where is Julian? He's a dead man. And then he rushes. He finally gets to like the solarium where Julian is. And Julian is talking to Rebecca about some shit. I think some Shuis stuff. And then in an absolute rage, TC just yells, you're a dead man, Julian. And he rushes this man. Okay? I mean, rushes him. I cracked up and I rewound this multiple times because Julian sees TC coming for him. And he grabs Rebecca, puts Rebecca in front of him, and tries to use her as a shield. But she wiggles her way out and gets away. And TC just punches the shit out of him. And then he gets him down on the ground and he just starts choking the life out of Julian for a long time. Now, this is why Sam was looking for TC, because TC ran off and got away from him. He knew he was out for blood. So when Sam found Grace and Eve having their conversation, while he wanted to have a conversation with his wife, he was like, I got to stop my best friend from murdering the richest man in town. So Eve is worried because she also thinks, she's worried that the reason that TC is in such a rage is that maybe he's found out or figured out that there was a relationship between her and Julian in the past, because maybe he figured out from the tape from last week, because Julian had a tape of her singing, but he doesn't know that. So anyway, so Sam and Eve find TC choking the life out of Julian. Sam tells Eve to get some water. She gets the water. Julian and Sam throws it on TC, splashes him, and he kind of snaps out of it, and he's in a fog. He's in a daze. He's like, what the hell happened? What's going on? And Sam explains, like, you just tried to kill Julian Crane, and when I saw you, you were, like, talking about seeing your dead dad. Like, again, this man was having a psychotic break, and nobody's... So then TC, Sam does not arrest TC, which I'm not surprised, because Sam's so bad at his job and TC is his best friend. But talk about a dirty cop. Talk about a dirty cop. That's attempted murder. He was yelling at the top of his lungs, you're a dead man, Julian. I'm going to kill you with my bare hands. You watched him, at the very least, assault this man in his own home. And you don't arrest him, chief of police? Child. So then, Sam is so bad at his job. He told TC, he's like, I'm glad you snapped out of it, but if you go off on Julian again, I'll be forced to arrest you. He's terrible. Terrible at his job. Now, Julian and Rebecca go off to the library or the office or whatever, and Rebecca's like ready to call to press charges, which of course she should be. And Julian tells her, no, father doesn't like publicity and some other stuff. I believe it's because he loves Eve and he cares about Eve, and he doesn't want Eve to suffer because of the issues that he and TC have. That's what I believe. I think he doesn't want TC to like go to jail, or because I mean, if a powerful man like Julian Crane, if you even like blink the wrong way in their direction, they can bury you under the jail. You know, money talks. Money talks. So he has the influence to do it, but he doesn't want to use it. And I believe that is solely based on his love for Eve. Also, Timmy asks a question of Tabitha where she again says, maybe, maybe not. Where Timmy talks about the person who was driving the car the night that TC had his accident. So Timmy says, so Julian was the one who drove the car, was the one that ended TC's tennis career. And I think Tabitha actually says, looks that way, doesn't it? Like, she's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I just wanted to point that out because I know what happened that night. And many of you probably know as well. So anyway, and it's a good plot twist. That's actually a really good plot twist. But anyway, moving on. So later, Eve gives TC an examination. Again, they're still at this house. It's like, go home, right? This is crazy up in here. Go home. But she gives him an examination, like outside on a bench. And she tells him basically, you know, I think maybe you need to talk to somebody about this. Like, you don't have to talk to me, but maybe you basically tells him he needs to go to therapy. She tells this man he needs to go to therapy. You know what he says to her? He says, well, I would need a shrink if I didn't want to kill Julian Crane. No, incorrect. You would be a well-adjusted adult if you weren't always thinking about murdering another person. That's not healthy. It's not normal. I don't give a fuck what they've done to you. It's not healthy. I'm not saying that your feelings aren't justified in some way, but you need to work through those because you really should not be going around murdering people, or at least, or even attempting to murder them. And you shouldn't be able to, whatever. So he refuses to go to therapy, whatever. Who gives a fuck? Moving on. I give a fuck. He should go to therapy. I feel bad for him. Nah, I don't feel bad for him. He sucks. It's hard to feel bad for these people. I feel bad for Grace, but she's like the only one I feel bad for. I have my moments with Eve, especially like with her hallucination, with the baby and all of that. I definitely have my moments with her. But in all of these situations, I don't really feel bad for anybody except for Grace to an extent. So let's go back to Grace. Once all of this hoopla is done, Sam finds Grace and tries to convince her that he loves her and not Ivy. Oh, also, real quick, while we're talking about Ivy and the Julian stuff, TC runs into Ivy and basically when he's looking for Julian to kill him, basically tells her that she's just as bad as Julian is and that he's going to kill Julian. And at first she's like, oh, that's terrible. And then she's like, actually, that's great for me. Please kill him. she is so excited. She has like a conversation with Rebecca where she's like, TC is going to kill Julian and you're going to be left with nothing. And I'm going to be left a wealthy widow. I loved it. I loved it. I love her reaction to her husband being murdered. I don't know. It just does it for me. But anyway, I think I just kind of relate to Ivy. There was a moment this week where I was like, that's too relatable. And I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to relate to Ivy as much as I do. Cause like, let's be real. I love her, but she's a villain. She's the bad guy. She does not have the moral high ground by any stretch of the imagination. But I find her relatable. Like, am I the only one? Like, do y'all find? Because I don't find Grace very relatable. I find Ivy far more relatable. Anyway, let's talk about it. So, Sam tries to convince Grace that he loves her and that he does not love Ivy. Grace has started blaming herself. She's saying, I never should have sent you here. Maybe it was the postpartum depression. Maybe I just wanted to humiliate you the way you humiliated me, kind of thing. And he never once apologizes to her. At no point does he say, I'm sorry I kissed Ivy. At no point. He keeps saying, like, I don't love her, I love you. But you still kissed her, and I need an apology at the very least. My God. I was listening very closely for this, and he never once apologizes to her. I feel like that's the bare minimum. That's the starting point. But and maybe that's purposeful. Maybe they wrote it like that. I'm thinking too much into it, but maybe they wrote it like that because he doesn't. He's not sorry for kissing Ivy. He doesn't feel bad about kissing Ivy. He doesn't. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have any guilt about kissing Ivy. He just didn't mean to do it. But still, when you make a mistake, like you didn't mean to do something, you still say sorry. You still apologize. So I don't know. He should apologize at the very least. But he says he didn't know what he's doing. I just didn't know what I was doing. He goes, the fog made me kiss Ivy. The fog made me kiss Ivy. I love this line. I believe it's going to be the episode title. The fog made me kiss Ivy. And Ivy overhears this. She is incredulous. She's like, ha, the fog? You're lying and you know it. She says, you're lying and you know it. I know it. And most importantly, Grace knows it. I love the way she says Grace. She says Grace. Like she gives it like the G and the R. Grace. Grace knows it. She says, our kiss was inevitable and long overdue. And she keeps going on saying, you love me, Sam. Admit it. And tell Grace I'm the woman you love. And then he tells her, he said, you're wrong, Ivy. I stopped loving you long before I ever met Grace. Because Ivy is saying things that basically imply that Sam married Grace because he couldn't get with Ivy, basically. And he's telling her, no, 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 no. I got over you before I met Grace. I was done loving you before I even met her. Then Ivy just keeps, and this is the right word, badgering Sam, saying, just tell her you love me. Tell her that you're done with her. Like all of this. And Grace says to Ivy, stop badgering Sam. And she says, to Ivy, stop badgering Sam. I'm to blame for Sam being in this position. I'm to blame for where we are tonight. I just don't like her blaming herself so much about this, because he didn't have to kiss her, and he hasn't apologized for it. I just feel like he should take more ownership of the situation than he is, and he's not taking any actual ownership of the situation, none whatsoever. And I think that's probably why Grace was having such a hard time in the first place with him saying he doesn't love Ivy. She's like, but I saw all the times that had I known about y'all's past, those things would have been very, very inappropriate and suspicious. I mean, a lot of it was just inappropriate anyway. She caught them kissing under the mistletoe. She was drugged by Ivy, even though she, unbeknownst to her, and saw a naked Ivy in her like romantic getaway hotel room. There's been a lot of things that he should take ownership for, and he should take ownership for lying to her, and he hasn't done that. He has not done that, and I'm still firmly Team Grace on this. And that's why it's irritating to see that they are writing her to have so much guilt and taking so much blame for a situation that had nothing to do with her to begin with. And then her request was reasonable. I mean, she pressed it a little more than I would have, I think. But her request of, you need to resolve whatever issues and feelings that you have for Ivy, I get it. I get her saying that after what she's been through. So, I don't know that I would do it, but I see it. I understand it. Anyway, so Sam tells Grace, when Grace is like starting to blame herself, Sam does tell her that she shouldn't blame herself. So points to him for that. And then Sam wants to just leave. He's like, you and I need to go somewhere where the two of us can talk, where we're getting back on track. I can tell you came here tonight because you see that I should never have been here in the first place too. And I can see that we're coming back to each other. And as they're about to leave, Ivy stops them and says to Grace, you opened the door. You opened the door and allowed Sam and me to be together. You forced him to confront his feelings for me. You forced him to confront his love for me. Do you really think you can run away from what you saw tonight? Do you want a sham of a marriage? Your marriage is based on lies. Ooh, girl. Y'all, Ivy really gave in all of her scenes this week. She always gives, but ooh, honey, she was giving with a capital G. Serving the girls. I've been watching a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm on my third rewatch. Naya had never watched it, so I'm watching it with her now, and so now I'm talking like a drag queen again. But she was serving, honey, and I was living for it. So she basically calls their marriage a sham. And then Ivy says to Grace, why were you even here tonight? I thought you wanted to give Sam the space to sort out his feelings for me. And Grace tells her, well, I had a premonition that you and Sam would kiss tonight. And Ivy says, well, that's just your subconscious telling you, trying to warn you that you're losing him to me. if you haven't already lost him to me. Girl, she said a lot. I couldn't even write it all down. There was so much. It was episodes 494 and 495. I highly suggest, if you haven't like watched them recently and you want to see these scenes, check them out, because this is where Ivy really shines. So then Sam just keeps intervening and trying to get Grace to come away. Come away, Grace. Don't listen to her. She's just trying to cause trouble. At one point he says she's just trying to cause trouble. But Ivy goes on and keeps just like, she keeps driving away driving the point home. And she goes on about the words. She says, "Are you going to believe Sam's words or his actions? His words say one thing, but his actions say another. He's saying he loves you, but he's kissing me. Does that make sense to you? What do you believe, words or actions?" I mean, she got a point, baby. Then she point blank says to Sam, this was stupid, but she goes, "Do you love Grace or do you love me?" And he says, "I love Grace. For the last time, I love Grace." Like, he goes off. He's like, I have told you over 1,000 times, Ivy, I love Grace." She won't hear it, honey. She won't hear it. She says to Grace, "Do you believe his words?" She brings up the words again. She's like, "Do you think his words mean more than his actions?" And then Ivy wins this race. Like, Ivy always wins, though. Ivy's gonna always win. She says, Grace says, "Ivy's right. Ivy's right." And she says, "I need to be alone tonight. I'm gonna leave here, but I'm not gonna leave here with you. I need to be alone." And Grace leaves, and Sam goes over to Ivy and says, "I hate you for hurting her." And Ivy says, "Just stop fighting it, Sam. I'm the woman you love and have always loved." And this part, she says, "You still love me and you never stopped loving me." And this is the part where I was like, why do I relate so much to this? Because I was like, I feel like this about every man I've ever dated. I feel like I could get any one of them back any moment I want. Like, I could have any man that I've ever had. I can have him again. I really feel like that they're all obsessed with me. I feel like they all love me. They all still love me. I talk to a lot of them still. They still really want to be with me. I could have them back at a moment's notice. I just don't want them back. But I feel like I really relate to Ivy in this moment, because she was really feeling herself. She was like, "You still love me. You never stopped. Don't you see? Can't you understand? I love you and you love me. And how could you ever stop loving me? Of course you love me. I'm me." And that really resonated with me. So anyway, that's just a little bit about me. So that's it, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. I'm sorry that it was just me today. I hope I was entertaining enough. I had a good time with myself. So, this wasn't that bad. Maybe if I have trouble again, probably not. So remember, you can always catch me on the social media. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just search Passions Podcast and you will find me. Also, check out the website, passionspodcast.com. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/passionspodcast. Leave me a tip. I need some money, please. Yeah. Remember, you are my passion for life.